Thank you, Pastor Greg. Thank you. Wow. I was almost looking for somebody else to come up here after that introduction. Oh, well, I first and foremost want to say I have been to many a baby showers, but I have never been to one as abundantly beautiful, as abundantly planned, and as gorgeous as this place. Thank you for having us here. It's awesome. Well, Pastor Greg shared a little bit of my story, but what I would like to do is I would be able to share my story with you as to why the Women's Resource Center is so precious to me and why it has been a key role in my life and why I am so honored to be able to stand before people and share the work that they do. As Pastor Greg said, I found the Lord when I was 9 years old, but that was because I was living with my grandparents. See, I am a child of teenage parents. My mom was 15 when she found out she was pregnant with me, and my dad was 19. And in 1963, when I was born, kind of giving my age away there, but in 1963, when I was born, abortion was not legal at that time, and it was still going on, but not abundantly done. And so at 15 years old, my mom and my dad got married, and a month after my mom turned 16, I was born. Well, within 6 months, that marriage was not working out, and I went to go live with my maternal grandparents. And so from there, I would hear stories about the Lord. My grandmother would read Bible stories to me, but I didn't know a whole lot about God. We didn't go to church. I didn't grow up in church. And when I was about 9 years old, somebody invited me to Vacation Bible School and to a little Baptist church that was a block from the house that I could walk, and I started going there, and I just found that the people there were so much different than the kids at school. The kids at school would be kind of mean. I don't know how else to put it other than that. You know, during that day and age, it was very uncommon for you not to live with your parents. It was very uncommon to only have one parent in a household, and if it was, they didn't talk about it. And so the kids would always tell me things like, what's wrong with you that your parents don't want you? Or why do you live with your grandparents instead of your parents? So I started my life with a lot of rejection, not having my parents around, and the kids rejected me. And so when I went to this little Baptist church and Vacation Bible School is telling me how much Jesus loves me and everything, I was thrilled to be in the presence of Christians. And so after Vacation Bible School was over, I wanted to continue in that. So I ended up going to church, and then I got brave enough to go to big church. That's what we called it whenever you got to go into the main sanctuary instead of just to the Sunday school classes. And so when I was in the sanctuary one day, I heard the pastor say that Jesus wanted to be my friend. And I didn't have many friends growing up. You know, a lot of this was rejection and things, and so I found myself running to the altar. And after talking with the pastor, that night he came and talked to my grandparents, and that night I was baptized. So it was just a really quick process, but they kind of left me there. There was no discipleship after that, and so that rejection started to come back again, and I was almost feeling like I was being rejected by Jesus as well because he was supposed to be my friend now, and where was he? And so in that process, I felt like the only thing that was going to make it right was to go back and live with my parents, one of two of the parents. So I started begging and pleading to go live with my mom. And my mom lived about 2 hours away. I'm from Texas, so my slang may come through there every once in a while, but she lived in Lubbock, Texas at the time. And so I went up there, and my mom was very much involved in the things that were going on in the 60s and 70s. So some of you may know exactly what I'm talking about if you grew up during that time period. And so there was a lot of drugs around. There was a lot of free sex and rock and roll kind of attitude going around. And so I saw a lot of that, which I hadn't seen before. But I started to begin to go, oh, maybe this is what real acceptance is about. Well, I kind of stayed away from it a little, started finding some friends that were not the best of friends, and then we ended up moving back to my hometown, and here I was with these kids that had given me a hard time all my life. And so they had already produced this story that I had left I was only gone 6 months. I had left for that 6 months in order to go have a baby. And I'm like, I had not even reached puberty yet, much less gone and had a baby. But that was the story they started. So it still was just continuing the cycle of rejection. And so after that, when I was in 13, I was in junior high. When I started junior high, some of those kids went a different school, and I was so thankful that I was meeting some new friends. although I wasn't choosing real wisely. And by the time I was 13 years old, a family friend raped me when I was 13. It was really hard to be able to talk to anybody about that because it was a family friend. You know, it was a family that had been around my family most of my life, and it was just, to tell them that, it was going to be rejection from my family to tell them. But in that, what I got from the rape was, I am now accepted. This is a way to be accepted. This is what they want. This is how this is supposed to work out. So at 13, praise God, I was not pregnant at that point, but at 13, I started a very sexual life, very strong sexual life. After that, I'd have boyfriend after boyfriend after boyfriend. They wouldn't stick around long because that's not what most people want in their life, but that's what I thought was happening. And by the time I was 16, I was pregnant. Well, at 16 years old and pregnant, and a mom that had been in the same shoes, she was very gracious to me. My mom was like, I am there for you. I totally get it. I know how this happened, and I'm sorry that you're in this position, but I will support you in whatever you do. Now, let me just stop with my story for just a minute there, because I want you to know that counseling in the rooms at the Women's Resource Center, we hear girls come in with very similar stories to mine. They come from all different walks of life. It doesn't have to be rejection. It doesn't have to be abuse. It doesn't have to be those things. But we will hear those same words from those counseling rooms. I will support you in whatever you decide to do. All of the pressure is put back on the girl. There is nothing there to tell them that we are here to help you, we want to support you in having a baby. All that pressure is put back on that girl in that counseling room. And they have heard that from parents. They've heard that from boyfriends. They've heard that from friends. All these people that should be there to support them are not there to support them. That's what happens. So, like me, they end up in a situation that I was in that I had to make a decision what to do. My mom has said, I will support you in whatever you do. But she put one stipulation on it. She said, you have to tell your grandparents. And I'm like, well, that'll be easy. They raised me the first 11 years. They were my rock during that time. So I felt like this is no big deal. I can have a child and my grandparents will support me. It won't be a problem. So I went to my grandparents and I told them what my circumstances were. And my grandmother, who had been my rock for 16 years, looked at me and said, if you have this baby, I never want to see you again. Now, I believe that my grandmother understood abortion the same way that a lot of people did during that time period. They were told that it was a product of conception, that it was not a baby yet. And that's where I was too. At this point of my pregnancy, I had no idea that it was a baby. You know, you were pregnant. They didn't say you're going to have a baby. They said you're pregnant. So that is the mindset that I think my grandmother had, and I think she was in shock of what was going on, which is common for families that we see in the Women's Resource Center. They are in shock. They are dealing with a situation that they did not expect because things didn't happen in the way that they should have happened. They didn't meet the right person and get married and then have sex and now they're having a baby. That was not the story that was happening for me, and that's not the story that happens for a lot of the girls in the center. So I could relate already. So when my grandmother used those words with me, it is the typical coercion that girls listen to on a daily basis. I felt I had no choice because I had no support from the one person that had supported me all my life. So I told my mom, I can't do this. I have to go have an abortion. My mom called the local Planned Parenthood. And every time I think about that, I wish I knew then what I know now about Planned Parenthood. I wish there would have been a Women's Resource Center to tell me the truth about what happens in those places. But I didn't. So within a week, I was in an abortion clinic with an abortionist and had an abortion. Left there sick, just really sick at my stomach, knowing that this was not what I wanted to do, and the realization that I had probably just taken a life. I wasn't positive, but I had this realization that I had possibly just taken a life, and I didn't know what to do with that. There was nobody to help me through that. My mom hadn't been in that circumstance as far as I knew, and so how was she going to help me? She had her baby. There was nobody around to help with that. So in order to cope with that, I turned to drugs and alcohol. I spent the next 2 years anyway, heavily use of alcohol, just trying to drown the pain. That pain does not go away with alcohol. It comes back when you're sober. It doesn't go away with drug use. It comes back when you're sober. It's not an answer. There's only one answer that is going to help with that pain, and that's Jesus Christ. He is the only one that is going to heal that. Well, during that 2 years that I was trying to cope with this and nobody to help me, I turned to more sex too, because I felt like that was the only way I was going to feel any better. And, sex was all about how you were going to feel at that time. And so by the time I was 18, I was in the same shoes again. At 18, numb from alcohol, numb from drugs, numb to the people that were around me, I called the abortionist myself. Never told the father, never said anything to anybody else. I called the abortionist, the same abortionist that had done the first abortion, and went into that place. Now, the first time I went in that place, they were so kind. Oh, it's all going to be fine. There'll be just a few little pricks. It'll be kind of like your annual exam. You'll hear a little suction noise, and it'll all be over, and you'll be back to life as normal. Well, obviously, life was not normal. And here I was again, and I'm expecting to have the same sweet attitude when I go in again. I'm a repeat offender at this point. And so when I went in for the second one, it was like herding cattle. I mean, they just rushed me in, okay, we'll do this, you know what the procedure is, kind of thing. There's no counsel, there's no talking, there was no ultrasound, there was nothing. They took me in there, the abortionist comes in, does his thing. I hear the suction again, so reminded from the first time, and why am I here? He says, okay, you're all done. And he leaves the room, and I realize that I look over, and he has left the canister with the aborted baby in the room with me. It was at that point in time that I really realized what was going on in my life, that this was not a good place to be. But I really and truly didn't have a clue as to how to get out of the roller coaster ride that I was in. I know that when these girls come in the Women's Resource Center, I am not the only one that has had multiple abortions. I have counseled myself, girls that have had 3 abortions. They're only there to have a pregnancy test to confirm that they're pregnant and that it's viable so they can go have another one. I am so thankful that when I have sat in a counseling room with these girls that I can share with them, this is not going to make it any better. It's going to make it worse. I know personally what it feels like to walk through that. You don't have to continue this cycle. And it's not like you're going to be all alone, because the people at the Women's Resource Center have churches like this that bring such an abundance to help them to be able to make a better choice, to be able to make a choice for life, whether that means life and carry to the point that you are the parent, or if that means life and carry and give the greatest gift ever given to a couple that can't have a child. Whichever way that is, they have made a better choice. And they know that when it's over. You saw that in the videos, and I think that is awesome. At my point in my life, whenever I had had my second one and I knew I had to change, my life changed, my lifestyle changed, but I still had all this stuff just stuffed down inside of me, and I didn't know what else to do with it, so I just kept stuffing it and stuffing it. I don't know if you've ever seen those party snakes you stuff down in a can, and you stuff them in there, and when you take the lid off, it pops out. Well, here was mine all stuffed down in the can with the lid on secure. And I just felt like that since I had all this stuff, I didn't deserve to have a good life. I really felt like that what I deserved was whatever I could settle for at that time, whoever was willing to be around. So I ended up dating a guy that we'd been dating for 2 weeks, and he asked me to marry him. Well, I jumped on that train because I felt like that was the only offer I was ever going to get. I'm like, whew, okay, somebody wants me, this is good, this is going to be a lifetime thing. And after what I had seen with divorce and everything, I was all over the fact that one time, I'm married, it's for life, I'm done, I'm not going to mess this up. And so, got married on Valentine's Day in 1984, and Didn't take but about 3 weeks, and I was getting beat. And he was very abusive, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and very set on having children. So I felt like if I could just